I never, at any stage, thought I want to be a politician, ever, in my life. Didn't see it featuring in my career portfolio at all. But it was only really after I joined UKIP in early 2013, and I gradually became more and more involved. And I'd always said, I will do anything I can to help. So I find myself here today, thanks to the people that adopted me, standing for South East Cambridgeshire as PPC. And it's a really, really interesting experience. I'm learning a lot along the way. The reason I became so frustrated with the other parties, the political elite, as they're often referred to, are quite numerous, but I'll give you a few. Broken promises. So many, I don't even know where to begin. Out of touch. We've recently had the Tourist Fundraising Ball. I have no problems with them fundraising, but £15,000 a table? But don't forget, we're all in this together. It actually doesn't feel like it to me. I mean, it also got me thinking, if we were to hold a fundraising event for us here, what would that look like? How much could we auction bungee jumping with Patrick O'Flynn? You know, I mean, you do start to think, don't you? We've seen the photo opportunities. David Cameron in the supermarket, do you remember that one? He looked so out of place to me. He looked distinctly uncomfortable. And when it hit the press, I have to say, I did kind of think maybe that wasn't the wisest thing for him to have done. They feed us spin all the time, and they think we're gullible, that actually we take it in and we believe them. I, for one, I'm afraid I've got to the point where I'm cynical and I question everything they tell us. I personally don't give a jot where they have been educated. So a lot of them went to Eton. Well, that's great. It wasn't their decision. It was probably their parents' decision. I don't hold it against them. But I do judge them on what they do. They were very lucky to have that brilliant start in life. I mean, which parent wouldn't want their child to go to the best possible school? But what have they done with that since? Have they had a job like you and me? Do they understand what it's like? Most of them, certainly the most senior politicians, have spent their working lives in Westminster. So it's really no wonder that they're detached from us. And actually that's unlikely to change. Accountability. Not only for our MPs and our government, but also those in public service. I don't think they understand the concept, quite frankly. You've only just got to mention Rotherham, and case in point. What about all the massive waste of money over recent years on abandoned initiatives? Do you remember the initiative where we were all going to have ID cards?
Wow.
There have also been failed projects. Under Labour, more than £26 billion was thrown away in failed IT projects. It's staggering. And that money is yours and mine and everybody else who pays their taxes, and they just throw it away. There is no accountability. Who was held to account for all of that? I'm not aware of anyone. And I've had a bit of grovelling on TV, but nothing else happened. The rejection by the House of Lords over a prospective budget cut, only back in December. And why did they reject it? One of the reasons that was given was that it might affect the quality of the champagne they might have. But please don't forget, we are all in this together. Only last week in the Daily Telegraph, I don't know if any of you saw this, I quote, MPs have spent hours wrestling with the dilemma. Which is more important? A flattering camera angle or an unrestrained view of John Berkeley? Now you'll be really pleased to hear this. The House of Commons Commission has decided in giving more favourable views of politicians. So new cameras for the House of Commons will give flattering eye-level shots, rather than the current ones, which are particularly cruel to front benches because they show bags under the eyes and receding hairlines. And the new cameras are expected to go live after the election, so Patrick, you'll be fine. The fact of the matter is, we have paid for those MPs and others to sit round and discuss how they look on TV. There is no mention of what that has cost us in either direct or indirect costs. And if that is really what they're worried about, well, they shouldn't be there in my view. You just, I mean, quite frankly, you just can't make it up. But this is, you know, this is reality. Then there's the issue of the EU, which I also had a big issue with and still do. They make 75% of our laws. Vivienne Reding herself admitted it. You can Google it. She's there on YouTube answering the question. They dictate who we can trade with and under what terms. As a result of which our fishing industry doesn't affect this part of the country particularly, but has been decimated. It costs 55 million a day to belong to the club, and actually it costs rather more, because what that doesn't include is where they come along with their begging bowl and say, actually, we need a bit more from you. They want to dictate which hairdryers, ovens, kettles, cookers we use. I don't really think I need them to tell me what I want to use, thank you very much. And the latest, which I got from the recent publication, Intelligent Transport Systems. You're going to love this. This is where there's going to be a system in every new car where it will monitor and track where the car goes, but also the speed at which it travels. Well, do you know what? The point at which they bring that in, I'll be looking at second-hand cars forevermore without that system. So what do our politicians do? Well, if you think about it, the politicians that have ended their time with our English UK political system often end up in the EU. So is it any wonder that nobody is shouting and screaming as loudly as they might? Jean-Claude Juncker, back in January, compared British membership of the EU to a doomed romance and suggested it's time for divorce. This is the only time I have ever agreed with that man, and I never thought I'd say that. Closer to home, in southeast Cambridgeshire, we have an issue with education. In Cambridge we have the wonderful university, but that doesn't mean to say that education throughout Cambridgeshire is absolutely fine. It's not. We have a massive issue about underfunding. We managed to get some additional funding for this year, for the year 2015 to 2016, but there's no guarantees that that will still be in place after that. And personally, I find it offensive to say that a student in the Cambridgeshire district is worth less in terms of educational funding than a pupil elsewhere in the country. It's absolutely outrageous. And it's been going on for over 20 years. So it's not just happening under coalition, it happened under Labour, and it happened under Tories before then. We have a responsibility to give our young people the best start in life that we can, and quite frankly, we're not doing that in Cambridgeshire at the moment. UKIP wants equal opportunity, a maximum opportunity for all. We recognise every child is different and one size doesn't fit all. We'll return to a more traditional primary education focusing on the 3 R's and a grammar school in every town. We'll introduce the apprenticeship qualification option instead of 4 non-core GCSEs, which can be carried on to A-level. And we'll reverse the trend to shut special schools. The targets of 50% going on to university will also be scrapped. Not everybody is right for university, and university isn't necessarily right for them. And the sooner we recognise that fact and admit it, the better. And subject to academic performance, UKIP will remove tuition fees for students taking approved courses in science, medicine, technology, engineering and maths. I'd like to refer to a couple of studies that have recently come out which I think underpin the need for a slightly different approach to our education. PwC, yes, the same ones that audited the Tesco's accounts, I know, they undertake an annual global CEO survey. And this year's survey, which was published in January, shows that 84% of UK CEOs are concerned about the availability of key skills in the workplace. 67% of UK CEOs believe creating a skilled and adaptable workforce should be a priority of government, yet only 26% think the government has achieved this. Businesses and education must work together to enable the UK to prosper in the longer term. INSEAD's annual Global Talent Competitiveness Index highlights the importance of work-based and vocational training for growing talent. Switzerland, Singapore and Nordic countries focus their education systems around employable skills. The top 10 countries for global competitiveness: Switzerland is top, Singapore is second, and we come in at 7, and there's been no change for us year on year for the last 2 years. At age 15, over 70% of children in Switzerland go on to select the apprenticeship track, which is quite staggering when you think about how our system works. It's different, but we can do better. As PPC for South East Cambridgeshire, I've recently been plugging into local groups in the constituency, and I went and met up with a group this week who are campaigning against wind turbines which are planned for their neighbourhood, and it was really quite interesting. As I sat there, having been introduced by the chair, the man next to me said, "I've written to all of you." So I thought, okay, and I was waiting for the next thing to come out, and he said, "And you replied," which I did, and so did Jonathan Chatfield, who's the Lib Dem chap. He said the others didn't. So one of the things I've been trying to do as a candidate is when I receive the emails, and there can be a lot, and they can be very diverse in nature, is to actually respond to people. Because UKIP claims to be the party that listens to the people. And if people send me emails and I don't respond, as far as they're concerned, if they receive nothing back, I'm not listening. Now, I am under no illusion that some of those emails may not be particularly genuine, if I can put it that way, but they still deserve a response because they've bothered to push the button. And the range of topics is phenomenal. It's from broadband to Trident to tax dodging, you know, you name it. The queries come in. What would be your position? What would you do? And all the rest of it. And I'm really pleased to say I've had some really good responses, including one person who has said, based on my responses, he's going to vote for UKIP. So whilst it's time consuming, I need to do it, and I owe it to them, because if I can't be bothered to respond now while I'm saying, please vote for me, what will I be like if I voted in? So back to wind farms. We know that wind turbines are expensive and inefficient, and do you realise for each wind turbine it takes enough concrete to fill up an Olympic-sized swimming pool? It's phenomenal, phenomenal. I hadn't realised that before I started. In practice, they only generate between 10 and 20% of what they should. In addition to that, they generate power roughly equivalent to £150,000. There's a subsidy for each one of £250,000. And 12 of the biggest landowners in the UK receive subsidies of 850 million. So it's not too difficult to see who the winners are. Solar farms in South East Cambridgeshire, there's lots of them, but when I've been talking to people, they seem to be less contentious. I think it's because they are not so visible from a distance, and the impact on people is slightly less. But the question I ask is, why put solar farms on good agricultural soil? What is the point? Some people say they're great for wildlife. Well, they may be up to a point, but they're going to be in place for between 20 and 25 years. And when they are taken up, what happens to the wildlife then? Not only that, but in that period of time, technology will have advanced significantly, and there will be hugely different and more effective options available. So Jim Pace did actually speak out about the increase in solar farms on prime Fen farmland, following a report that warned by 2030 we would need up to 7 million hectares of additional land to feed our growing population. I was pleased he spoke up. My question was, so what have you done since then? I can't find that he's actually done anything. It's also worth bearing in mind that the UK is the second most densely populated country in the EU, after Malta. And our population is expected to grow by 10 million in the next 10 years. So that's the backdrop against which we're working. We know energy bills are too high. It is predicted that 40,000 people will be dying this winter alone of winter-related conditions. I think it's time to end the eat or heat dilemma that some people face today. Green levies on energy bills currently account for about 5% of the bill. That's going to go up to 11% within the next 5 years, and by 2030 it will be around 15%. UKIP will repeal the Climate Change Act, which costs us £18 billion a year. It will support a diverse energy market, and there will be no new subsidies for wind farms or solar arrays. Interestingly, more than 65 top conservation scientists, including the former UK chief scientists, cite nuclear power as the least damaging source of energy for the environment. I also attended the Swap and Bullback hustings the other week. It was my second event, my first being talking to students at King's Ealing in the cathedral. Both, I have to say, were absolutely freezing events. And at Swap and Bullback, I was so concerned because I was sitting on the platform, physically shaking with the cold. And what I was concerned about was that if anybody saw me shaking, they would think it was nerves. It wasn't, it was the cold. The chair of the event was absolutely outstanding. He had briefed us beforehand and he said, I will not let you off the hook, and you will answer the questions, and if you go over time, I will cut you off. The Green candidate was cut off several times in mid-flow. I wasn't conscious that one of my answers to one of the questions asked at the event was going to result in a bit of a backlash. But it did, and it was reported in the EE Standard, and it was to do with a question around whether or not we would repeal the Same-Sex Marriage Act. And I said, I don't know. But actually UKIP might consider it. Well, yes, indeed. indeed. So I made it onto the Hope Not Hate website. Yes, and as a result of that, threatening emails and the police got involved. So it's been an interesting journey thus far, but I am not put off. We have a good message to give to the electorate. And finally, I can't not mention Labour's pink bus. Now, I can mention this because I'm a female. Well, it's probably very well intentioned, but when I have talked to my friends to see what their views would be, they have been slightly appalled at what Labour have done, because I am not the only one who feels patronised, and they too do not feel that the colour of a bus is going to make the slightest drop of difference in the way that they vote. And judging by my friends, not all of them, I know, with what their political allegiance is, will be voting for anyone that turns up in a particular coloured bus to talk to them. Thank you.